You're listening to Graveyard Show Classic.
Good evening, friends of the undead. I am the Deacon of Darkness, the posthumous pimp. Freakshow!
And I am the Diva of Dismemberment, Mistress of the Blade, June the Meat Cleaver, from the Bordello of Horror.
You're getting your freak on with the Caretaker on the Graveyard Show.
Step into the graveyard with the Caretaker at graveyardshow.com. That is graveyardshow.com.
Podcast number 45, November 12th, 2009.
Hey, this is Dr. Gangrene, and when I'm working in the lab late at night, I always tune in to the Graveyard Show.
Welcome to the Graveyard. Enter the Graveyard every Thursday night, midnight Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific. Filling in this week for the Caretaker. And please welcome your host, the Undertaker.
Tonight, the Graveyard Show travels to Nashville as I interview Larry Underwood, the man behind Creature Feature, and his character, Dr. Gangrene. The Graveyard Show podcast is a proud sponsor of the 2009 Viscera Film Festival. The festival was created by Fangoria's Spooks model Shannon Lark and promotes and celebrates women filmmakers in the world of horror. Submissions are being accepted until the end of the year. For more information, visit chainsawmafia.com/viscera or stay tuned to the Graveyard Show as we'll keep you updated on the festival as the year continues. Now, as you can hear in the background, the workers are breaking ground for tonight's guest, Larry Underwood. Tonight we welcome into the Graveyard Larry Underwood, the man behind the Physician of Fright and the host of Creature Feature, Dr. Gangrene. Creature Feature has been named 11th best cable access show in the country by Gear magazine, and Dr. Gangrene has been named one of America's top horror hosts in Dark Realms magazine issue number 21. Creature Feature can be seen in Nashville on CW58. Larry, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me here.
How you doing tonight? Did you have a good weekend?
Yeah, it was great. Had a good one, and kind of settling into the post-Halloween, getting out of that post-Halloween funk now.
Yeah, I'm sure you had a lot going on around Halloween. What'd you do? What'd you have planned?
We did a few appearances around town, and then on Halloween night, we were home with the trick-or-treaters. Wouldn't want to miss that for anything.
Do you go to the door as Dr. Gangrene?
No, not usually. Although one year, one of my sons did dress up as Dr. Gangrene, and that year I did also. So I get to say that my son dressed as me for Halloween.
That's pretty awesome.
That was pretty cool.
Let's talk about Creature Feature for a little bit here. You started doing the show in July of 1999, but
Correct.
Creature Feature actually started in 1971 with a different host. What can you tell us about him?
Well, his name was Sir Cecil Creech, and he was played by a guy named Russ McCown. He was on from 70 to 73. He was a hunchback I almost said assistant. He was a hunchback with some bad teeth, and he kind of spoke with a Transylvanian accent, but he was a Southerner like me, so his Southern drawl came through, which was actually kind of funny. He later moved the show to TNN and became the Phantom of the Opry, and was actually on nationally on that, which of course that later became Spike TV. He's still well remembered. A lot of people, if I go around town and mention Sir Cecil Creech, I always get a good, oh yeah, I remember him.
I think he's remembered all across the country. I was just talking to another horror host last night that brought his name up.
Yeah, he's one of those that I think more really because of the second show as far as nationally goes, but here locally, the Phantom of the Opry show on WSM, before it became WSMV, WSM TV. But yeah, I think it's well remembered locally.
So the Phantom of the Opera ran from 1983 to 1985 on TNN. But after 85, the horror host scene where you're at kind of laid dormant until 99 when you came out with your show, which was called Chiller Cinema. What made you want to take on a show like this?
Well, I had met a guy here locally who had a cable access program, and he kept telling me about it, and I kind of asked a couple questions, out of curiosity. He kept telling me, you should try your hand at this. I think you'd be good at it. And I sort of resisted at first because it seemed like it would be a lot of work, and it was. But eventually I thought, well, yeah, I'll try my hand at this. And my creative partner at the time, a guy named Chuck Angel, the guy that started the show with me, he thought, well, it'll probably last 3 or 4 weeks. That'll be about the extent of it. But we jumped in feet first without really knowing what we were doing, and here we are, almost 11 years later, still going at it.
The show ran as Chiller Cinema from 99 to 2004 as a half-hour show. Doing the half-hour show, what was the response from the community? I mean, was it well-received?
Yeah, it's funny. It took about a year before people really noticed it. So we were on really until about July of 2000, and then I started hearing from people, yeah, I've seen that show, I started getting emails from people and viewer response, so it sort of caught on and just snowballed from there. I think making more live appearances and doing more stuff around town also helped with that, but it just really picked up speed quickly at that point. After that 1 year mark, it just was amazing. The reaction was great.
So the half-hour show, Chiller Cinema, actually spawned a second show that ran 90 minutes called The Mad Movie of the Week. What were the differences between those two shows?
Well, the main difference was the length, because Chiller Cinema, when I first started the show, it was a half-hour show, and the reason I did a half-hour show was that they couldn't give me enough of a time slot. So I thought to myself, well, if I'm going to do this horror host thing, how can I pull it off with just a 30-minute spot? Rather than break the movies down into 4 parts, I thought, well, I'll just do a show that's about the movies rather than actually showing the movies. Mm-hmm. So we sort of would do a themed show each night, like a vampire theme or a mummy theme, and sort of center it all around that, all the skits and interviews and such. Whereas the Mad Movie of the Week, I was able to finally, we got a new automated system at the cable access station. And when they did that, they were able to program it, so they gave me the midnight to 2 a.m. slot. I was the last thing on Saturday night, so I was able to actually show entire movies. So that was the main thing, was just the length of the shows and also the content.
Was it difficult trying to crank out 2 different shows?
It was, just because I worked full time, and between that and I've got 3 kids as well, so I was I stretched myself a little thin, so I really couldn't do justice to both. We shot the Mad Movies of the Week, a big batch of them all at once. A friend of mine had, it was actually an old shirt that he got on a weekend, and we set up in there. We set all our stuff up and shot all of them in one day, and then I just put them all together when we just run them all back to back and then replay them all. And I don't, never really got around to shooting that second or third fastest movie. I kind of shot a couple extra ones, but really never got around to doing any more because we just didn't have the time. So it was always kind of more of a low-key thing. The focus was always really on the Chiller Cinema show.
After Chiller Cinema, how did the show evolve?
After Chiller Cinema, I took, we were on cable access, as I said. Mm-hmm. My idea was kind of always use that as a launching pad to sort of build a fan base and expand from there. So once I felt like people knew the show well enough, I looked into getting it onto paid television. I actually bought airtime and then went out and sold sponsorships to local businesses to pay for it, and put the half-hour show on for a while, and then decided that I wanted to show entire movies, and was able to. We started on the WB just for a little brief amount of time at like 3 in the morning, and then I took the show back off and put it on UPN, and we were on there for a while at various time slots, and then eventually the WB gave us our 2-hour time slot. So we are no longer, having to buy airtime now. They give us our spot. It's sort of like, we kind of had to work our way up and earn it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Pay our dues.
Well, you're fairly well known. I mean, you've gotten praise all across the country. Actually, yourself, as well as the show, has gained some pretty honorable praise. What are some of the awards that you've won for the show?
Well, we've gotten a number of things. We've had some mentions in some magazines, like Gear magazine. Back when we were on cable access, a list of what they call their top cable access shows, and they call it one of the top 20, number 11, I think, best cable access show in the country. And we were nominated for a local Emmy and won a couple of Rondo awards, which were really very cool. Just recently, this past year, we were given the governor of Tennessee gave us Governor's Merit Award for recognition of service over the past decade, and they actually passed a proclamation. The city of Nashville actually passed a proclamation honoring us for our PSA spot that we did. So Dr. Gangrene's officially in the law books of Tennessee, as crazy as that sounds. So years from now, somebody will be going through the law books and they'll see this Go Green with Dr. Gangrene resolution. Pretty crazy. And there's actually a clip on YouTube. I'll check it up there because I couldn't hardly even believe it. But we actually went down to the city council and accepted our proclamation from the city council down there in Nashville.
That's pretty awesome. They didn't give you a key to the graveyard, did they?
No, I think that's next year. The skeleton key to the graveyard.
So, what are some of the characters that help you out on the show?
Currently, I've got a nurse assistant named Nurse Moan Each. Before her, we've had a number of them. The original one was a guy named Oosley, which at first was me because I thought it was kind of funny that I would play both parts and sort of walk off the screen as one character and come back on as the other. But then later I had another guy play it just so I could get some interaction, get wise. After Oosley, we had Nurse Dead Body. Then we had another hunchback assistant named Lump. And there was a talking skull at one point named Barnaby Bones. I think that's pretty much it. So,
you were actually syndicated on a couple different cable access stations across the United States, right?
Yeah, I would send my shows out and they would play them, yeah.
Okay. How long did that last?
Oh, that was a few years. I started with a little station up in Massachusetts, Greenville, Massachusetts, Gangreneville, Massachusetts, I always call it. And actually, he's still showing those states up that way. But I started there and then sort of just expanded out. I was just sort of, someone contacted me, I had my information on the website. If they wanted copies of the show, I'd send it to them and they would air them. Before you knew it, I was on in a half dozen spots, different cities, Atlanta and all these different cities. Then more started coming on board. So it just kind of got eventually to a place where I just had to kind of scale back because I was sending out so many VHS tapes at this time, the things with VHS, and it just got kind of expensive. And I just finally got to the point where I just had to kind of focus more on the local, producing the show, putting it on locally, and just stop mailing out stuff because it was getting kind of crazy, having to constantly run down to the post office and mail off packages here and there. But it was cool and it was neat to say, hey, I'm on in 10 different markets. It's kind of a nice ego boost,
Oh, definitely. So the whole horror host thing basically started with Vampira way back when. Do you feel that there's been a recent resurgence of horror hosts across the United States?
Oh yeah, definitely. The cable access, advent of cable access television in the 80s, and then even more so the internet lately has really, kicked in interest of that, and that between that and public domain material that people can host, the movies that they can host, there's been a big resurgence in horror host programming.
Where do you see the horror host community going in the next 10 years? Do you think it'll be more web-based, or do you think local and regional television stations are going to embrace the idea again?
I think it'll be more web-based, definitely. The regional stations, unfortunately, can make more money selling that airtime to infomercials. And really, honestly, that's what they care about is making money. And I understand it's a business, but it's also a shame because there is a market. There are people that like watching this stuff, that will love. They may not watch the movie if you put it on by itself, but you put it on with a host, and they'll stick around just to see the host bit. I mean, it's been proven.
Exactly.
But unfortunately, a lot of the stations won't give them a chance. But the internet is like the wild, wild west right now. There's no real rules out there, and it's all still, even at this late date, it's still kind of forming itself, into what it will be eventually. So I definitely think that's where horror hosting will go.
Some of the older horror hosts were actually working with the local stations, and they were able to buy up packages of movies, and you were talking about public domain movies. Mm-hmm. It only seems that there's a limited amount of horror genre stuff that's in the public domain. Do you think there's going to be more public domain films available in the future, or is it going to get more slim?
Well, there's going to be a little bit more public domain stuff as time goes on, more movies slip into the public domain. But more importantly, or I guess what will happen more frequently will be independent films. And I think that's what you'll see more and more horror hosts going is independent filmmaking. Since it's so cheap and easy to shoot a movie now, you're getting more and more people that are getting better at it. And as more and more content becomes available, I think that's what you'll see the horror hosts turning towards.
Well, I think that's a great idea because we're totally behind independent horror here at the Graveyard Show. If it was to be web-based, the only problem I would see with that is, the availability of everybody to download the independent films. And, of course, a lot of filmmakers would rather, release their films on DVD to get them on television. That's great.
Well, and the other thing about that is, again, with the Internet, it's sort of going beyond television because you kind of, break that television way of thinking and think, okay, let's think globally instead of regionally, So if a host, for instance, is successful building up his franchise, building his show up, then he can have a fan base worldwide. So what is the incentive for a local filmmaker or an independent filmmaker to let this horror host show his material? Well, the benefit to it might be that this horror host might have thousands and thousands of viewers, whereas if that producer were to put it up himself, he's an unknown, and it might take years to build up. It's even a fraction of what the horror host already has built up. Like, for instance, Count Gore, the horror host out of Washington, does his show every week, and he shows fresh content weekly. Well, he's got viewers worldwide, so if Count Gore puts something up, he's naturally going to get a lot more eyeballs on it because they know to tune in every Saturday night.
And now a very special announcement from Dr. Gangrene.
Now hold on just 1 minute. It's almost 100 degrees out here and you're a 3,000-year-old mummy. Here, put this on. Sunlight is a contributing factor to melanoma, one of the most deadly forms of skin cancer. So before you go out in the sunlight, be sure and put on sunscreen of SPF 15 or greater. Now go get her, Ace. So unless you want to look like that guy, put on that sunscreen and go green with Dr. Gangrene.
When you were growing up, what were some of the television shows or movies that influenced you?
When I was growing up, I was a big fan of a lot of the TV shows like, of course, The Monsters and Addams Family and Gilligan's Island. Some of those things were probably my biggest influences. In addition to those, there was a television show called The Big Show that was on here in Tennessee. It was aired out of Nashville. It showed monster movies, matinee monster movies on weekday afternoons. So I'd come home from school and run to the TV, flip it on, and there would be the black and white Universal movies. I know that's where I remember seeing all those Universals for the first time. So, they would do a theme week, like a week of Frankenstein or Wolfman Week or Preacher from Black Lagoon Week. That was great. And then my other influences besides television, just as importantly for shaping me as a horror host, were comic books, horror comic books in particular, music, Alice Cooper specifically. I became a huge Cooper fan. Once I discovered Alice Cooper, it was like, oh man, this is so cool. This guy's, singing about horror, and I mean, I'd never seen anything like that. So. And
he was bringing it to everyone across the world, live on stage. Alice Cooper's great. You're talking about comic books. You had a few underground comic books that you put out, right?
I did. That was my creative endeavor right before I got into horror hosting. We ran our own comic book company, we being Chuck Angel, the guy that I started Chiller Cinema with. We had a company called Out of the Cellar Comics, and we put out mostly horror comics, and did okay at it. We made enough money to break even and continue putting out comic books, which for a independent comic book producer, if you can get enough money out of it to keep yourself going, you're doing all right. Yeah. I guess our big claim to fame was a book called Bestsellers, spelled with a C, Stellar, that had the first appearance of the Goon in it. The Goon is a comic book that's out right now by Eric Powell. I'm sure a lot of your viewers probably know it. And the prototype to the Goon was a character called Monster Boy, and Monster Boy's first appearance was in our comic book.
That's very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
So, you've been a regular at Wonderfest in the past. Is this something that you're still involved with?
Yes. Unfortunately, I had to miss last year. My son graduated. My oldest son graduated last year, and the graduation was Saturday night of the convention. So, that was an easy choice to make. I just said, guys, sorry, can't make it. But should be able to make it again this year. And, every year we do a big live show where we host movies and have a big ballroom that's just packed with people. And Bob Burns from California, the collector and actor, is my guest of honor every year. We've shown a number of movies. We showed The Tingler one year, and showed The She Creature in one of Bob's movies, one of his episodes of the TV show The Ghostbusters, which he starred on as Tracy the Gorilla. So we've shown a number of movies. It's just a lot of fun. Always a lot of fun.
If our listeners aren't familiar with Wonderfest, what is the convention all about?
Wonderfest is primarily a model convention, as in model building, but it's really expanded beyond that over the last 5-6 years especially, and it's gotten a lot more into monsters and monster culture, and it's just just another fan convention, and it's held in Louisville, Kentucky. The Old Dark Clubhouse is always there, and what that is a room where some of the founding members of the Rondo Awards always set up, and they remove all the furniture and basically turn it into a big lounge for everyone to hang out in, and they put monster posters all over the wall and usually decorate it with a certain theme, and it's just a cool hangout lounge place. And then the Rondo Awards are always held there, so they actually give out the little statues there for whoever's present, And it's a really, really good. It's one of the up and coming conventions. I hear nothing but rave, reviews afterwards. I think the Southern hospitality and friendliness of all the guests and staff of the staff and the people putting on the convention really are what win over people who attend.
And that's a once a year event.
Yeah, once a year event.
What time of year does that usually take place?
Usually around Memorial Day. I'm not exactly sure the weekend this year, but it's somewhere right around there.
All right. Are there any other events that you get behind throughout the year?
Yeah, there's a number of them. We were, we usually make appearances at local, some of the local places around town. Like this year, the library asked me to come host a movie. I hosted The Ghost of Mystic Chicken there. I just got a call this week from the Nashville Opera, and this coming Sunday they're showing the House of Usher with music by Philip Glass, and they asked me to come out on Sunday and to help. They're having a costume contest. Not exactly sure how this ties into House of Usher, but they're encouraging people to come dressed as zombies.
Huh.
I don't know where zombies come into Usher, but I said, sure, I'll come out, and they asked me to come out and judge the contest. So I'll be at the Tennessee Performing Arts Center this Sunday judging zombies. And then every year, there's always stuff like that going on. We've been out to the zoo, we've been to the library, we've been, different places. But one yearly event that I do is called the Horror Hootenanny here in town, and that's something that started as a fundraiser for my show, but has just become a yearly event where I host like 4 or 5 bands usually. Sometimes we even had a sideshow performer there one year, and it's always at a local club, and it's just a hoot.
How many years have you been doing that?
This was the 6th year.
6th year.
Yeah.
So you bring all these bands out, but you're also a musician, right?
Well, I sing.
You sing, yeah.
So,
what's the name of your band?
My band's called Spook Hand, like a spooky hand. That's actually where the name came from. My oldest son, when he was little, had a nightmare, and got him calmed down. They asked him what's going on. He said, a spook hand is waving at me out of the closet. So we're like, wow, that's a great name.
Earlier you were talking about public service announcements that you've done. What are those all about, and how did you get involved with that?
That's something we just decided to do for the station. We noticed they were running these public service announcements, and we thought, well, we should, do some of those. The station manager, Michael Hook, our program director, really encouraged us to do it. He said, you guys should shoot some of those. So we did, and they air on Saturdays during the kids programming. So, we've done a number of them on seatbelt safety and anti-littering campaigns. Did one about wearing sunscreen, where we had a mummy that was going out in the sun. Actually, he was chasing a woman, going to kill her, and Dr. Gangrene stepped in. So you think he's going to stop the mummy from killing the girl? And no, he's concerned that the mummy's not put sunscreen on. We did one about picking up your dog poo, where we had a werewolf running around in the park, and Dr. Gangrene says, you should clean up after your pet, and he's got a bag. And the punchline for that one was, it's not what you don't do, it's what you do. So I got to say do on the airwaves. It was pretty cool.
So the public service announcements run during children's television on Saturdays, but people can also see them online, right?
They can. They're on my website, or they're on YouTube. If you just type in Dr. Gangrene PSA. I think all of them are on there. I know the last couple were, but no, I'm pretty sure they're all on there.
Do you have any of the episodes of your shows archived anywhere?
I've got them all on tape or DVD here at the house. I was selling DVDs of the old stuff, and I have stopped because I want to put together a nice definitive collection. Mm-hmm. So, that's something I was just talking to my director about today, future plans for the show, and that is definitely high up on my list, putting out a real honest-to-goodness collection of the old stuff, because I get asked about it a lot. Some of the early material was pretty amateur in one sense, that we were sort of learning our craft and learning what we were doing, but there was also a real sense of energy about it, just like whenever you start any new endeavor, you're excited about it. So it's kind of fun to watch the progression of the show from the early days to the little bit more polished later stuff, So, yeah, hopefully that's something that we'll get to.
Hopefully sometime soon. I wouldn't mind seeing some of that stuff.
I hope to also put a little bit more up on YouTube and on my website, because there's a few clips up now, but I definitely will, and I will definitely get some stuff available this year for sure, over the next year or so. Hopefully by this time next year, there'll be some Dr. Gangrene DVDs floating around.
Just in time for the holiday season.
Yeah, exactly.
So you've been in a couple other films too. What can you tell us about those?
A couple of independent local things. I've got to do some makeup in one. A local director named George Dimmick has a movie called Demon Sight, where I played the demon lord Exorco. It was about a 4-hour makeup job on that one. It was kind of cool, the full head prosthetic and everything. So I've been in a few other little local things, and then in the documentary American Theory, I guess, is the best known thing that I've been in. The documentary about horror hosts, which is really good. If any of your viewers out there haven't seen it, you should definitely look that up. American Theory is really informative and pretty well done.
Yeah, we actually had the director, Sandy Clark, here on the show.
Yeah, Sandy's a good guy. And John Hudgens is the other guy that he's a Tennessean. He's up in Knoxville. I
got to ask you, what's your take on horror classics versus the new horror?
Horror classics versus the new horror. I see the merits of both of the new horror. The direction it's going, of course. I don't want to be one of these guys that's the old fogey that just refuses to watch anything new. But at the same time, I really, really appreciate the classics. I mean, I'm not such a remake buff, but if it's done well, my big thing is if you're going to do a remake of a movie, pick a movie that's not just an A+ movie to begin with. I mean, don't remake Psycho, for crying out loud. There's no point in it. You're not going to improve on the original. Pick a movie that close, a movie that was done pretty well, but sort of fell short for budgetary reasons or lack of technology, something that it makes sense to sort of do a modern retelling of it. Those, I think, are the best remakes. And you can kind of do your own spin on it. But there's been some really good movies come out in the last 10 years. I really enjoyed Drag Me to Hell. I thought that was a great movie. And Zombieland, fantastic. My favorite movies are horror films with a sense of humor. That's absolutely my favorite.
Mine as well.
Yeah, you can't beat that. Return of the Living Dead probably being my all-time favorite, I guess.
Creature Feature can be seen on Saturday afternoons from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. on Nashville's CW58. Mm-hmm. If people want to check out your website, what is that website? Well,
the website is drgangrene.com. chillercinema.com will also get you there. And the show right now is kind of on in fits and spurts. We just had a batch of films that ran over the October season for Halloween. Mm-hmm. And so right now we're sort of putting together some new ones. Not exactly sure when they'll be back on, but I'll post all the info on the website when the next broadcast dates are, as soon as we figure it out.
Okay, so it's drgangrene.com or chillercinema.com.
Yeah, and chillercinema.com also. They both point to the same place. And then, of course, my blog. You can get to my blog from there. It's drgangreneblogspot.com. And YouTube channel and MySpace and Facebook, blah, blah, blah. That's all. There's links to all that off the website. So, yeah, drgangrene.com.
Well, it seems like you're everywhere. Is there anything you'd like to add tonight, Larry?
I just appreciate you having me on. I hope everybody out there had a fun Halloween. Seemed like it came and went too fast, as always.
Yeah, definitely. But it's right around the corner, Time flies these days.
Every year I have all these plans for things I want to do, movies I want to watch, things I want to build out in the yard for the trick-or-treaters. And it just seems like I never can get it all done.
All right, Larry, I want to thank you for stepping into the graveyard tonight. It was a very enjoyable interview, and you have a good night.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you again, Larry, for stepping into the graveyard. Once again, you can check out Dr. Gangrene and Creature Feature on Nashville's CW58 and visit him on the website at chillercinema.com. As always, I'd like to thank you for listening to the podcast. Now, as we close down the graveyard, I'd like to remind you, as you exit, please lock the gate behind you. We wouldn't want anyone to get out. Until next time.
The Graveyard Show podcast is a proud sponsor of the 2009 Viscera Film Festival, which celebrates and promotes progressive women filmmakers in the horror genre. Viscera is now accepting films in two categories: women-directed/produced films and women-only productions. Submissions are open until December 31st, 2009. To find out more about the Viscera Film Festival, go to theChainsawMafia.com/Viscera for details.
Good evening, friends of the Undead. This is the Deacon of Darkness, the posthumous pimp, Freakshow.
And I am the diva of dismemberment, mistress of the blade, June the meat cleaver.
Myself, along with the Harlots of Horror, host the online video podcast, Bordello of Horror. Check out all the twisted fun with featured films, news, interviews, reviews, and more.
I personally dare you to step into the bordello at MadisonHorror.com.
That's MadisonHorror.com?
MadisonHorror.com.
Hurry,
Hurry, step
right up.
The most
Amazing tales appear
before your
very eyes, gathered from
the four
corners of earth and brought here to you
at 19
Nocturne Boulevard.
See the famous
man-eating book of
Sumatra.
Or a phantom
Direct
from merry old England.
Whoa.
Or aliens
from beyond the star.
Even such as these cannot withstand our platinum death ray.
Yes, our platinum death ray.
All these
and more
spread out
before you.
And all
we ask is a moment of your
time.
Spin the wheel.
And
take a chance.
Try your luck.
www.19nocturneboulevard.net.
The Last Doorway Show features interviews, news, conventions, and independent horror films. Hosted by Miss Misery. Follow her journey through the horror genre as we discover the inner workings of the horror world. Visit thelastdoorwayshow.com.
Hey fans, it's Ken Forey. Just want to tell you about Mail Order Zombie. Great company. They review zombie films, any zombie film, every zombie film, and it's something you should tune into. So if you get a chance, go to the website, look these guys up, Mail Order Zombie, and find out what the hot zombie films are today. What's going on? These guys are right on the cutting edge of reviewing zombie movies. And if you're a zombie, or you want to be a zombie, or you're thinking about being a zombie, or your mom's a zombie, your dad's a zombie, or your damn mother-in-law's a zombie, tune into Mail Order Zombie, baby. You'll find out what's going on. Ken Forey, and that's out.